Okay, everybody, so we're going to do a little something with chords. And we do variations of chords. Chords are things you need to always work. So it's not like, oh, I've worked them before and so what we're going to address on the weekend is chords with people. We've done past events and situations, but also we want to enhance the potential for working chords in relationships, family members, and um, also, you could say to a certain extent, this is the one that I haven't um, talked about before. It's I refer to this like in myself as like invested behaviors. And what that means is like, you know, um, behaviors that you'd like to break out of, but sometimes you're not even aware that it's something that you're doing. Like an invested behavior for me is like, have you ever watched somebody like they're having a normal conversation and say they're involved with like some organization, you know, um, let's just say some like church or something. Let's just say it like that. And soon as the topic comes up, they kind of shift gears and they go into a mode of like a sales pitch about their church, right? Like, oh, you should go. It's amazing. It's this, it's that. It's that's not necessarily a bad thing. But what happens is that we outgrow some of those situations sometimes as we get older. You know, like for me, like I grew up here, I'm saying church, but it could be anything. It could be something in business, it could be family, it could be a circle of friends, it could be a hobby that you did, it could be um, some good thing that you did that you outgrew, some dysfunctional thing that you're just tired that you keep doing it over and over again. And there's just part of us that invests in a piece of this. And so what happens is we get so invested in these situations that when it's time to walk away, it's hard to detach. It's hard to say, okay, this served me well. I need to let it go and I need to move on. Because we've sent out so many like little chords that as soon as the energy gets engaged, we just kind of go into this automatic behavior. And um, it doesn't it's good for the moment, but after a while we outgrow it. And it's time to let it go so that we can have growth in other areas. And so if you've noticed, like say it's a church and you go, okay, you know what? I've outgrown this church and I'm going to move on. And you go to a different church or you start meditating or you start doing whatever you're doing, right? But there's a piece of you that still kind of always thinks in the back of your head about that church. Like, it was the church that I grew up with. It's the church where I went to school. But I've outgrown it is something, but there's a part of you about walking away from it or simply detaching and moving away from it that can be hard sometimes. And it doesn't have, like I said, it doesn't have to be a negative situation. Most times they're not. They served you while you were doing it, but at some point they start to hold you back. It's like good for a while and then it becomes not so good. Not because it's icky, it's just outdated, you know. And so think of some situation where you invest a piece of yourself, you know, some behavior like, I always got to do, and then fill in the blank. And so I don't know. It could even be a habit that you just have that you don't really think about. Think about something like that. Like here would be another example. Um, I'd love to meditate every morning, but the habit is I get up and drink my coffee and read the paper, and then I'll go, I'll meditate extra tomorrow, and then you just never do it, right? So it could be just the behavior of avoidance, or you could go, God, I got this little routine where I got to drink my coffee and read the paper before I do anything. Like I'm uh, paralyzed if I don't do that. I'm out of sorts. Then it can be focusing on the thing that is blocking you from doing a behavior or a habit that you want to do. I hope I'm making sense. We'll kind of do therapy and kind of figure it out as we go along. So, does that make sense to you?
Think so. I mean, we could open it up for
Yeah,
questions right
let's
now.
open it up to questions because this is like a very abstract thing to be doing. So let's open it up to questions, and maybe your questions will either help me say it better or help you get it better.
And go ahead, Teresa.
Hey, Teresa.
Oops, I'm mute. Hey, Greg. Hi, Sam. Geez, I'm just trying to figure out which one to focus on, but um, an unconscious behavior instead of like,
Yeah, it could even be like, like going back to like the stuff that you have to deal with in the workplace. It's like, okay, I always react this way when my boss is being a jerk and da 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 da, and setting aside that he's being a jerk or not. Like you just go, okay, but like maybe I would like to have a different behavior or more refined behavior or more conscious behavior when he's being a jerk. Like
sure.
like how can I shift that? That the very first time I ever did this was about that. Like I
Okay.
always like would say, like there was this one person. It happens a lot with lots of people, but there was this one person. It seemed like we were always having an argument, and this is metaphorical, about how I reacted to having my foot stomped on. Like, it's like they would walk up and stomp on your foot and just go, so there. And then whatever you said was like
Your
why
fault.
are you being that way? Like you're being so aggressive, you're being so, animated. Like why is that? You know,
Hmm.
and it's like, well, you just stomped on my foot. Well, you're just being weird. Like it seemed like it was always like that. And you know, what I tried to target was not even knowing what I expected, but I did the chords not to the person because I'd already worked the person with the chords, but I did it to like that behavior.
Okay.
And because the behavior kind of still goes to that person, but it unwinds it in a very different way. And what I noticed, like I was like, oh, I'm gonna stand up for myself, or I'm gonna do this, or I'm gonna do that.
Hmm.
And literally what happened was I got to this place where, it took a few sessions, but I got to this place where I was like, I just don't care. Like I really genuinely, it's not that I'm trying to say, I was like, I truly didn't care. And I was like, I'm just gonna walk away from this situation. Like you know what? We're not gonna play anymore. We're not gonna do this weird dance anymore. And that's
Hmm.
not always an option. But the thing, why I'm emphasizing that, when I
Hmm.
first looked at that situation for myself, my brain couldn't even comprehend that I could just stop. That I could just stop. Like that wasn't even like, yeah, well, I could stop, but I don't know. It didn't even dawn on me. And then when I started working the chords, I was like, I'm just being animated by this situation that is just on a loop. It's just doing it over and over and over again. And when I cleared those cords up, all of a sudden I realized I don't have to do it. Like I just don't.
Yeah.
And so sometimes there's going to be a realization of, oh, I could do something better, or I can do something, more passive, or I don't need to
Mhm.
engage. But there's also like, I don't have to do this dance anymore. Like I just
Mhm.
don't. Like I can lay it down and let it go. And it's almost like the behavior becomes almost like this animating thing for you in the situation. Like you could be thinking something and then all of a sudden it engages and like all your thoughts go out of your head and you just start doing this animated behavior that you're not really thinking out. It's just a reaction. But
Oh,
it's very ingrained in us.
yeah. So just as you said that, like something that's come to my awareness just recently is my mom had passed.
Uh-huh.
That consciously taken on energy as a child, but also behavioral patterns of how she would face into things. For
Mhm.
example, getting in the car and driving or going shopping. So if I want to, instead of um, dealing with something head on, it was a coping mechanism. So if I wanted to work on like letting that go, it would be the it's just I'm like, oh my God, I didn't realize this. This is what I do.
Right.
Like I
Right,
go
right,
get a
right.
coffee. I
Yeah.
get in the car and I drive.
Right.
I phone calls to everyone and I'm avoiding what I need to do, which is be with me. So
Right.
situation, since it's a learned pattern, and then I'm like, wow, that's something I've taken on. How would you frame that in
Yeah,
this?
I would just look at the pattern, like what we're gonna do, like, because that's the thing too, is we're using intuition, and so we don't have to nail all the little
Yep.
details. But
Hmm.
um, you know, like the way to say it mechanically is when we're in a place where we have automatic behavior or automatic thinking, which is like our instinctive responses, not
Hmm.
being processed by the brain. In that state, we still cord things, we still get corded, and we still are reacting to things that are in the cord, probably more so in that state than when we're more cognitive and more like, consciously, cognitively processing something. And
Sure.
so like, any of those behaviors that you just go, like you said, like it's a reaction, or it's like this happens and then that happens and then it's almost like you feel like you're putting a fire out of sorts.
Exactly. Okay. No, it's very helpful. I was, yeah,
I
trying to
don't know, like I always called this like in my notes when I was going back and looking at it, I called it invested behaviors just because it's invested because it's repetitive. It's
yes.
usually not a thing that you've done once. And then if somebody says you probably shouldn't do that, you're like either I don't know what you're talking about or like, nah, I should totally do it. Like, you don't even really know why you're doing it. You're just doing it. And so,
Yeah. Yeah. No, no, and that was my awareness just recently. I'm like, oh my God, I'm doing this. And oh my gosh, I learned this. And this is automatic behavior and it's
mhm.
serving me. Okay, super. Thank you so very much.
Good, good.
What comes up for me is when I fall into overwhelm when I'm around
Yeah,
my
that,
family.
that could be, because the thing with overwhelm is you could almost say that um it can feel like the overwhelm can happen like because you feel trapped. Like overwhelm happens could be too much stimulation, but a lot of times it's like not feeling like you have an option, or you're not feeling that you have a direction that you can go, or that you're not getting to make the choices and you're being judged for any choice that you make, and you're trying to make the right choice. And sometimes I'm saying this for myself. I'm not saying this for whoever said that. I'm saying this for myself. but I'm talking out loud to see if this might help. Sometimes I had to personally differentiate the difference between feeling overwhelmed and feeling confused. And overwhelmed is like, oh, I don't have any options. Confused is usually what's happening doesn't fit the way it feels. Like somebody's maybe not being honest, or everybody's wearing a mask, or everybody's pretending something, or there's like a piece missing. And so you're in this place of like confusion, and it feels very similar to overwhelm, but it's not overstimulation or feeling trapped, but you're confused because you can feel that the information isn't right, but you don't know why you're feeling what you're feeling. And they're very close, but there's very different reasons why they happen. And so, yeah.
And I'll just read their whole thing just in
Yeah.
case it brings more out. Okay, so what comes up for me is when I fall into overwhelm when I'm around my family who thrives on guilt and frenetic behaviors. We are very dedicated and enmeshed, but I've grown out of a lot of that pattern. So it's hard for me to keep an open heart and stay calm.
Yeah.
And instead, I fall into avoidance and wanting to escape the potential crab pot.
Yeah. So I would do it like for that particular situation. I would do it for the interactions with the family, but don't focus so much on your family. Focus on you. Like if you can like think of yourself like as you interact with your family. It'll clean things up with your family, but it's like it's cleaning you up as it then cleans up the cord, if that makes sense. It's like you're in between the cord and your family, and it's just it gives you the ability to access something that's very automatic or unconscious, however you want to say it. Yeah.
And go ahead, Zakia.
Hey, Miss Zakia, how are you?
Hi, everyone.
Hey.
So is it applicable? And there are tasks that I never seem to get to do. And every time I get ready to do it, it just never happens. And I just do other things and don't attack a particular task. Is
Yeah.
that
I would try that, because like if you look at it, I mean, it might be that the task just is, boring, or it sucks, or whatever, like having to do it. But also it's probably a behavior from the past. Like it's not necessarily the situation now. A lot of times if it feels similar to something that happened when you were younger or something, it's just like, here it goes again. And you just kind of, a lot of times when we have these kind of behaviors, it's not something that just popped up. And a lot of times it can be things that are associated with like maybe a family behavior that, we just inherited. And that's kind of the goal, is if it is a behavioral thing and that was inherited from the family, you can unwind it and like have a walk away. But it's such a dense energy, and it's so like impacted in our field that like even when you go through and you do healing on something like this, a lot of times it doesn't get accessed because it's like too compressed in the energy body. Psychologically and neurologically, there's other explanations. But if we look at it from the point of view of energy, it's impacted, and it's almost like you gotta like break it up and let it start to expand to like get it out. And so doing this idea with the chords, I don't know, things that I have had a hard time accessing in myself, like, oh, I'd really like to unwind, XYZ. And I tried all kinds of ways and just nothing. And then I would even do healing on the situation itself or the pattern itself, nothing. But when I started cleaning the cords to it, it became less dense and it became like treatable. Like before, it wasn't even treatable. If that
Right. But I'm really talking, it's not even something that in the past, but it could be something like cleaning out my closets and getting rid of old coats, cleaning out the kitchen cabinets, which I've never ever done. I mean, just basic stuff in
yeah,
my house.
so like that if you boil it down, like letting go of things or like establishing order, anything like that.
Right.
And so I would say that other behaviors or other situations have contributed to that.
Oh,
And it's like the tip of the iceberg. Like there's so
oh,
much below the water, but you see the tip.
uh-huh.
And so, because really those aren't that hard of tasks. It's going to be a little boring thing that you do. I mean, that's what we did over the holidays. We organized and cleaned out the garage like every day. We just said, ugh, but um, I would almost guarantee that that is about things in the past, and it's not about like, oh, all the things that had to do with your coats or something like that. It was probably something very painful that
Uh-huh.
this feels a little bit similar to. You know what
Oh.
I mean? Like it's just,
Having said that, I just made the connection.
oh,
When
tremendous.
when we were little, our uh, our parents could not afford to buy us many coats. We had one coat.
Mhm.
And so now as an adult, I have so many goddamn coats. It's like,
Right, right,
so yeah,
because
I
you're
see,
trying to,
yeah, I
exactly.
see that now. I
Yeah,
see it.
yeah.
I
And why
see
would you want to get rid of them? Because, like
it.
that totally makes sense. Like, yeah,
Yes, yes,
yeah,
yes. Thank
yeah,
you. Yeah. Now it's clear.
good.
Someone said, I never thought of cords that way when you were
Yeah.
explaining it.
It's a
Yeah,
pretty
me
weird way.
neither.
Like I tried to talk about this like long, long time ago, like when I was doing teaching energy healing, but I don't know. It felt like I was taking away from what was being taught, and so I dropped it. But like when I would do therapy on people, this is one of the things that I would do is I would clean cords between these like kind of behaviors and things, and it's like how we would break break patterns. And so as I was sitting and preparing for the class on the weekend, I was pulling all this different kind of information, and I was like, we're going to work a few different areas of chords, and this is going to be one of them. And I it's not something that I've ever seen like talked about like that way before, but um that's why I don't have a great explanation for it. But I thought let's just throw it out there, start talking it out and playing with it, and I think people will get the idea. And like I think people are getting the idea when you
Exactly,
see,
yeah. I think
yeah,
it's,
like as we talk it out, it makes sense.
Mhm.
And so
I think we're
yeah,
good to practice, yeah.
okay. So if possible, for this you will use galbanum if you have it. Galbanum complex, the blend spine or stagnation. If you don't have those, you could also use myrrh. And then if you don't have those, let's use the etheric cords, ironbark eucalyptus, rue, St. John's wort. Even helichrysum would work. Let's see where we're at with that. And then if we need to give other options, we will. This weekend's going to be a little tiny bit different. Like I'm going to give you more information that we're going to cover, but we're going to practice a whole bunch. But basically, I'm giving you guys like a little bit of a workbook for when you want to do different practices, just some strategies and stuff to put in place. So we'll practice them, but you know. There's also going to be a lot of references to older classes. Like if you're working a subject, you can go back to these segments in a particular class if you've had that class. So it's going to be a lot of good reference material. I think we're good. Okay. Okay. So now the best that you can, just start observing the behavior, whatever it is. If you're not sure, just observe the pieces that you can observe. Okay, as you're observing, begin inhaling the oil that you've chosen. Long, slow, deep breaths. Continue to observe that behavior. Now, let the behavior go. Come back and put your awareness on the temples. Inhale the oil with your awareness on the temples. What are you? Yeah. Okay, then just let it go for a moment. Now, go back to the same exact behavior, like whatever it is. Even if you've had a bit of realization, stay focused on the behavior. If the behavior has expanded, still include the expanded piece, but keep focused on the behavior. So observe the behavior, take long, slow, deep breaths. And then go back to the temples. Your awareness is on the temples. Well, this one- mm, Yeah, it's very different than stuff we've done before. Okay, and again, your awareness is on the behavior, your reaction, your automatic, movements and the way you talk. Your awareness is on your temples. Take long, slow, deep breaths with your awareness on the temples. And then be still for a moment. Begin inhaling, same oil. Your awareness is on the sex chakra. Move your awareness to the low back, the back side of the navel. The front solar plexus. Your awareness is on the front solar plexus. The back heart. Awareness is on the back heart. And then the brain. And then the crown. Your awareness is back on the temples. No, what we're doing is very, very abstract, right? Very abstract. I'm just curious, like, how are you guys feeling? How are you feeling, by the way?
Way less agitated.
Yeah, so and you weren't feeling like if I said, are you feeling agitated? Would you have said, yeah,
No, but I was feeling agitated about
about the pattern?
Yeah.
Okay, so Samantha said that, she wasn't feeling agitated, started looking at the pattern, got a little agitated, and now she feels like substantially less agitated when she looks at the pattern. And so that's the thing, like, I mean, that kind of nails it on the head. Where we're usually, there's a bunch of things we do that's just automatic behavior. It's just part of being human, right? But like in these behaviors, there are these chords, and there's things that stimulate instinctive responses and emotion and thought processes, behaviors. And because they're automatic, we don't really process it. We don't really evaluate it. We don't really go, oh, that feels icky. You just kind of engage it and you don't really think about it. And so then when you start putting your attention on it, it just looks like this bundle of energy, and you go, well, nothing really I can do about that. And then you start unwinding it, and then you start to realize, this is my personal experience. This sucks. Like, I don't want to do it anymore. Like, I don't know why I didn't stop it, but that's the nature of an automatic behavior or an automatic response is it's not that we're avoiding it. We just, our brain and our emotions never got a chance to process it. It's just always been stuck in instinct. And like by working the chords this way, you kind of shift that component out of instinct. So then you can start going, well, this is how it makes me feel. And then the brain, this is how it makes me think. And then you can start to process and go, I don't want to do this anymore. Or I'm going to do it better. Or I'm, fill in the blank. It's not always a negative response. But even if we want to innovate and do something better, sometimes we still have to let go of that past behavior. Like, that behavior got me here, but it's not what's going to continually keep me growing or evolving. Like, it got me to a spot, gotta let it go, right? And so it's like saying that, it's easier said than done. And so when you start unwinding these pieces, you realize how much, we're living a partially cage-free life. There's times where we are very much in a cage. And sometimes that can be okay, and sometimes you're like, I was done with this cage 20 years ago. Like, I don't know how to turn the key on the lock. And so this is a way to kind of break out of those situations. So let's have a couple of shares, maybe share experiences, unmute yourself, type in. We're going to be doing a bunch of this on the weekend. So.
And go ahead, Zakia, then Robert.
Hey, Zakia.
So here's a really, really deep one. So Margot, when I'm the middle of three girls, Margot's the oldest. When we all graduated from school, she decided that she didn't want to work. She didn't want to do anything for herself. She has been homeless her entire life. I'm sure there's been times where she was homeless. She was always in shelters, but that's what she chose. Nothing happened to her, right? But having this discussion, I'm wondering if there is a cord I can cut And
I don't know that it's something that can be cut. Like a lot of times, like I've tried it. It's they're a lot of times too dense and sometimes
too old.
well, they're almost like how there's cords between like you and your parents. Like as much as you cut that cord, even if you use tools, it's just going to reattach.
Right.
And so my experience was like I would cut it and it would just reattach before I could put my crystal down.
The
Like it was
reason I
just,
ask is because, Dottie has been treating her along with you, and
Mhm.
because Dottie is clairvoyant, she's uncovered some things in her history that made it clear why she chose that path of not doing
I,
anything
I
for
I would
herself.
do the thing, you might be able to do it for her, or you can get her to inhale the galbanum and just think of like behaviors like that. But I have a friend that's like that too. Like I haven't spoken to him in a long time, but didn't matter how good life was, he was always getting his meals out of dumpsters
Right,
and then
right,
eventually, didn't want the stress of paying for, being in a, apartment or a house or,
right.
and he would just take off and, over the years I've done healings up like nothing touches it.
The reason
But
I thought it was possible is because now that we're treating her cancer,
uh
and I've given her so many instructions on do the inhalation, do the exercise, do the salt bath, do the this, do the that. And she does every single thing, which totally amazed us.
so
Because
you know what I would probably say, like it could be just like the time in her life, but the first session or two, like how like we did this process and then we did the three brains, like we
right,
did sex. So the three brains, when you work it up like that, it has a very strong cleansing effect on the aura, and it diminishes the negative things that were radiating, like, hey, people come and betray me. Like it diminishes that. And then it increases the positive things that we radiate, like, love and, whatever. And the layer that kind of unwinds after that is patterns. And so like when you go through and when you work this component, like you're targeting the behavior, and then the prefrontal cortex is also a deeper level of the behavior. And then when you work the three brains upwards, it potentially helps to flush that stuff out of the field, but to break the pattern.
mm-hmm.
So it's like a combination of those things. Like straight up healing, I never found that it impacted those behaviors very much. Trust me, I tried.
Okay.
Like not just on myself, but on other people. Like maybe a little bit, but
Right.
there's too much ingrained in us.
Yeah, yeah.
That's because for me, I didn't come to the court thing right off the bat. I came to the court thing when I was like, what else can I do? I've tried so many things on myself, like out of frustration and out of like beating my head against the wall, trying to resolve something. I'm like, it's still there. It's just as like it was. Like
Right,
it's
right.
not really changed. Then I started doing this whole cord thing, and things still needed to be addressed, but it almost like they got addressed when I would just do my daily practice. Like, oh, I'm going to do meditation. Oh, I'm going to do a little self-healing. Oh, I'm going to do whatever. And things just started falling away. And I remember the first couple of times that I realized it, I was like, huh, that's a little interesting. Like that it just fell away like that. And the only thing that I was doing different was this cord thing focused on the behavior. You
Could
can
we break it?
try you can try to do it with oils for her, but it
I was thinking maybe if we break it into pieces, like, so since we've been treating her, I've been trying to get her to think about her diet and eating good food, fresh food, cooked food. But because she's been in shelters and homeless her entire freaking life, I can't get, because this time she doesn't eat. I said, why you didn't eat? Oh, I didn't have no money. Oh, my son didn't go shopping. It's just a mentality. She just doesn't think about eating, because I'm sure in her life there were many times there was no food.
Right.
So-
Okay. So let's do this. Let's have you do it for her. Think of her and just see her like eating food, meals, like whatever, and let's just see if it does something.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
I'll try that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We might have to adjust, but that's a good starting place.
Yeah. Just like pieces of her lifestyle now, and just break them down piece by piece.
Like her, and then the things that are associated with that behavior.
Right. I'll try that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then go ahead, Robert, then Teresa.
Hey, Robert.
Hey, Greg.
Hey.
You were asking about how we felt this. Like the second you started talking about a pattern, I knew exactly what I was going to work on. And the second that you said to move to the temples, I could just feel my stomach start to unwind and relax.
Yeah.
And I could hear it gurgle.
I'm laughing out of like, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
And I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that was there in the gut. But it's like, oh, what a relief. I
suspect that, you know how like sometimes we talk about in the digestive tract, like stress plague digestive tract, doesn't this and that. I suspect that this is a big component of what causes a stress plague digestive tract. Like if you think like, okay, work is stressful, but the behavior probably feeds, it's almost like an IV of that stress energy that just goes right into us, that we don't even think about, or we don't even question. And if you think about like what we were doing a couple weekends ago, I think it was one of them, Uncle Bob or something, where we were doing like situations and past events. And I was watching a couple people that sometimes have like fluctuations in their Ming-Men, and doing that made the Ming-Men like stabilize to a much greater degree. And it just shows that these external situations, even though you might not be thinking of them, but because we're connected to them, it still kind of brings us stress, because these situations might be unstable, or they might be a little chaotic, or it's not even like, oh, this is frustrating or upsetting. It just might be like you're okay with it, but the people who are also involved maybe aren't performing well or something, and so it causes a little bit of instability in the situation, and it impacts us. This is that on steroids. Like it is years of that, or years of like, I have to behave this way at work to be able to manage and get my job done, and da 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 da. And then maybe things have changed, but the behavior is always the same. And so
for someone who complains about their work when they get home, let's say, that could be a pattern that they work on.
Yeah.
The coming home and complaining part of it. And
so I'll tell you a big
that
one
might-
for me, like we go to the work thing. So for me, like this is not now, I would say 30, maybe even 35 years ago, I would never ask people for help. Like I always had, like if there was a project, I had to do it all. And then at some points I was like, I can't get things done. And then I realized one day I can't get things done because I don't know how to do a lot of the stuff that needs to be done. And so then I go, well, then I guess it just can't get done. Never dawned on me like, oh, I could ask for help. I could ask for somebody to come in and Perfect example, computers. I don't know that much about computers. So I have this guy who's really amazing helping me with computers. I'd never be able to do any of it. But I had to clean the cords between me and that behavior, because like as much as I would go, oh, I guess I could do this or that, I as soon as something would be in that genre of something, I would just go back to that behavior. Like I just wasn't like I wasn't thinking about it. I didn't want it. I was trying. But as soon as I would get engaged in that situation, I was like, yeah, oh, that's me, whatever. Let's get back to what we always do. Right.
And that sounds a little bit like Zakia's thing is
Yeah.
she would work around it and do everything possible to not work on what she needed to do.
Right.
That
And
avoidance.
we all have
Yes.
something like that.
Yeah, I can show
Yeah.
you my list.
Yeah, oh yeah. Like my list is, I mean, I've been chipping away at it for a while and it's still like, really? But there are things that characteristics of my family that I would like say I'd like to let go of, that I think I have. You know, there's some things that you're just not going to, but there are some things that I'd let go of, and some things from me just being young and dumb. There might not all be gone, but it's substantially gone. I mean, when I was young, my life was a mess. And if I hadn't addressed those things, my life would be a mess right now. Like it would be worse. Like you know, it would have so many years of evolving into a bigger and bigger mess. You know, and a lot of it was behavior. It was just point blank behavior.
Well, I love this. This was wonderful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we're gonna do
And I'm
more on the
looking forward
weekend.
to the weekend.
Yeah, we're gonna do more on them.
Good.
Go ahead, Teresa.
Hey, Teresa.
Hey, that was amazing. It kind of unwinded into another part of the pattern, and I almost see the pattern like a ball of yarn.
Yeah.
Went to love and approval and being a good girl, and then feeling out of control. And I thought, wow, I never expected that. And then as we continued on in hearing the other stories, I'm like, oh, okay. So there's a little bit more. It's around a rescue pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Like wanting to rescue everyone.
Sure.
Which then leads back to wanting to rescue yourself and connect with your own self and heart, or at least in my experience. So that was very cool.
Very nice.
And since we're going to be, I'm now excited about the weekend, since we're going to be working on this on the weekend, with the insights, would you pick it up on like rescue pattern and looking at it through that lens? You know, thinking of all the different dimensions of like, and if you hear the growling in the background, it's not my stomach, it's my dog. I am fostering another rescue right now. Ironically, right? As we talk about the rescue patterns. So on the weekend, would you say like whatever we picked up here, you know, there's different dimensions of the chords or the behaviors that we can neutralize?
There will be like layers, actually like dimensions better. Like there's just different components.
Yep.
You know, a lot of times situations are very multifaceted.
Yep.
And yeah, it will hit a bunch of the different facets, and it just gets things moving. And then when we follow it up with the 3 brain, you're bringing your intuition to the subject matter.
Okay.
Like, so you're moving it from automatic behavior, moving it up the pipe to get it to a point where your brain starts going, okay, there's a problem. How do I resolve this? How do I step away from this? How do I work my way out of this? Whatever it might be.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
You're
This is
so welcome.
exceptional.
I have a question. I took the class last weekend, well, 2 weekends ago. So I used the Uncle Bob that weekend and these realizations, the engagement and expectation and automatic behavior that I indeed had a certain amount of energy I was putting out.
Mhm.
With the Uncle Bob, I found myself very less reactive.
Oh, tremendous.
I really felt less attached, much more detached, much less stress for everyone.
I wonder if the Uncle Bob would work for the invested behavior.
I think that might be what they're
Yeah,
kind
Uncle Bob might be a choice there.
Okay.
I'll
Might
have
we'll
to
play with it,
experiment.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to experiment.
Oh, and what they're asking is, does this break chords?
The thing that we're doing, it's more about like cleaning cords. And I would say if you clean it enough, the cords dissipate. It's a little bit different than cords with people. This could be cords with multiple people, but we're so like that's why I was calling it invested behavior. We get so invested in the behavior, even if it's a behavior that we don't like, that it's not really the energy from the other people. It's just how we get engaged in these connections and then just can't break free of them. And so it's almost like unwinding it from our side. And once you unwind it, they just kind of go away, you know. Yeah.
Another comment, this process helped me get to another layer of the issue, which is fear of judgment.
Yeah.
It feels like that
Yeah.
fear is actually the core or near the core issue, and all of the other emotions were camouflaging the fear. So would I just repeat the protocol with fear of judgment, or
Yeah.
continue applying the protocol with a focus on the initial emotions?
I would keep working the situation because there's going to be other things that come out. And what we're going to do over the weekend is, as these things unwind, then we're going to use like another process to go through and help clear that in a way, or if not clear, evolve it, bring light to it, enhance it. If it's positive, diminish it if it's negative. And yeah, it's going to be an interesting little weekend. It's going to be like a class with a lot of experimenting, you could say. Kind of a little bit different than stuff that we've done before. Not massively, but a little bit.
And from the other person, the Uncle Bob, they said okay, and love that word, invested.
Yeah. Because you either want to protect it, or, sometimes we like expand on it. Like, you could have a sibling that you don't like. We were just discussing this a day or two ago. Like say you have a sibling you don't like, and you're like, ugh, I can't stand you. I don't want to be around you. But if somebody starts picking on them, like you're the first one to step up and defend it, or defend the sibling. And these behaviors can be that same way. Like I don't like it, but I also defend it at the same time. Because we're invested. Like sometimes it's hard for us to let go of something, not so much because we like it or don't like it, but we just have a lot of time, energy, and there's a lot of gravity in the situation that just doesn't allow us to go, "Ugh, I'm going to walk away. Kind of fun and exciting. So this is totally not what I planned on doing tonight.
Is it not?
Well, we're going to talk about chords, but I was like, I was going to do something else. And I was like, let's just go for the invested behavior. So join us on the weekend. We're going to do a bunch of it. And yeah, we'll go from there.